Does money buy happiness? Actually, yeah, it does. And we're going to talk about why that is today. And we are live. I'm broadcasting out of beautiful Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville. I'm psychotherapist Travis Hill, and this is Navigate Life Radio, a show where we talk about relationships, mental health issues, life strategies, and many other topics, including today, where we're going to talk about how much money it takes to make us happy. Now, I know that it's a pretty popular saying that money doesn't buy happiness. So, some psychologists did some research on this years ago, and they wanted to find out whether this was true or not. Now, I believe the research that came out was maybe 5 to 7 years ago at this point. So, what they did was they said, okay, let's not make the assumption that money doesn't buy happiness. Let's find out if money can. So, we'll find out people's income, and then we'll find out how happy they are, and we'll see what happens from there. So, what we found was that people get happier the more income they make. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about a household average income in the United States. So, keep in mind that's the type of numbers we're talking about. And what they found was that as people earned a household 10,000 more dollars per year, they were exponentially more happy than they were before they got the $10,000 additional per year. Now, what this means is that somebody who makes $20,000 a year is going to be exponentially happier with $30,000 a year. Now, why would that be the case? Well, for example, that's the difference between unreliable and reliable transportation. I mean, having unreliable transportation can affect your ability to be able to get to work. It can affect your ability to be able to make income in the first place. Versus reliable transportation, which will allow you to maintain a consistent income because you can reliably show up to the job in order to make the money in the first place. So we know that making 30 versus 20 makes you exponentially happier. And what the researchers found was that jump in $10,000 per year kept jumping exponentially. So people who made 60 were much happier than people who made 50, and so on. Now, what they did find, however, was that it eventually plateaued. And it seemed to plateau at around $100,000 per year. That's a household average. Now, why would that be the case? Why is it that people are kind of jumping up in happiness each $10,000 more they make, and then it seems to kind of stop at about $100,000 a year? So the researchers wanted to look at this, and what they found was that at about $100,000 a year in a household, pretty much everything that you would need and a lot of the things that you would want are taken care of. So you've got a reliable transportation. You probably live in a safe neighborhood. You have access to decent health care. Your children probably go to a decent school. They're getting a good education. You're able to take a vacation or two with your family every year from your job. And so not only are all of your needs taken care of, you're eating quality food, you're even getting some luxury, so the ability to take vacations and the like. Now, that actually wasn't the main thing that made people happiest. What they found, and the reason it plateaued at about $100,000 a year, was that once you're earning that kind of money, you probably have some autonomy in your job. And what that means is that in your work, you have some self-motivation, and you have a boss who tends to leave you alone to be able to do the things that you do well. And you're probably, kind of at not the peak of your career, but you are excelling in your career because you have some mastery over the work that you're doing. So not only are you somewhat skillful and masterful at the work that you do, but you have some autonomy to be able to go do it. You have some freedom to be allowed to go do that type of quality work that you want to do. And that seemed to be the biggest factor in why it plateaus. Because after $100,000 a year, you don't really get more autonomy, and it's not likely you're making you're getting more skilled at the thing that you're doing. And so this seems to be the important factor is autonomy. Now, they did actually keep looking at people who continued to make higher and higher incomes. And so once you make $100,000 in your home per year, in order for you to be able to get to the next level of happiness, it wasn't an additional $10,000, it was an additional $50,000. So you had to go from 100 to 150 in order to be able to get to the next jump. And from 150, you had to jump to 250, and from there 500, and then on to $1 million a year in order to get the next bump in happiness. I have had people ask me, what is it that people are doing with $1 million a year that they're not doing with $500,000 a year? And it seems that that's one of those levels at which, for example, you have your own airplane. Now, why would that make a difference to somebody's happiness? Well, it's not owning an airplane that makes somebody happy. What it is that that airplane now allows that person to be able to do the type of work that they want to do on their own schedule and their own time. So at $1 million a year, you're not standing in line at TSA airports, the TSA and at the airport and waiting for the ticket taker, and you're not having to kind of deal with the crowds. And essentially what you're doing is you can just tell the plane, this is when I'm leaving and this is when I need to take off. And you can kind of skip the hassles that flying commercial seems to create. But at $1 million a year, you don't have to deal with any of that. You're able to travel where you want, when you want. Remember, this is back to autonomy. And so that actually allows you to be more efficient, which in the end allows you to be able to earn more income. So it in the end, it goes back to autonomy. And so what I'm hoping people take away from this is not the fact that you need to get to $100,000 a year in your household in order to feel maximum happiness. Instead, the takeaway is really supposed to be more about the mastery and autonomy. Are you skilled at the thing that you want to be skilled at? Are you skilled at your job? And do you have the freedom to be able to express the mastery of that skill in the best way possible? Do you have that support system around you that allows you to be able to do that work? And at about 100,000 a year, that seems to be the case. You have, the resources available so that you don't have to worry about other things. You don't have to worry about meals, and you don't have to worry about your health, and you don't have to worry about your kids in their schools. You don't have to worry about these things. It's not that people don't worry about them. It's that that those things are pretty much taken care of. And so your stress is reduced and allows you to be able to focus on the thing that is going to allow you to actually make more money. So once you have that skill and once you have that autonomy, your income can actually continue to take off because you're not worried about, let's say survival needs. You're starting to thrive a lot more. The other thing that I'm hoping that you can take away from this, and actually see this in some clients that I work with, is that let's say your household makes $130,000 a year. Well, it could actually be the case that people who top out at 100 are happier than you are. And the reason is that when you get to, let's say, 130, you're busy looking ahead to the 150 a year. This becomes a plan for you. And because you want your lifestyle to be at 150, not 100, you're feeling more stressed and miserable because you're trying to push your lifestyle to that next goal. And you haven't been able to make that leap to the next level of happiness and contentedness yet. And so you see this on all those scales. People who make 300 a year are busy looking at 500. They're not living like people who make 250. So you can make 300, but in terms of your lifestyle, it's not really any different. The difference is that mentally you're looking towards the next goal for your next level of happiness. And so you'd actually be better off keeping in mind where you were originally at in terms of happiness, let's say that 250 mark, instead of trying to make that leap to 500, because those income leaps are so much more difficult to be able to obtain. The higher up you go, the rare, the more rarefied air there is, the more difficult it is to be able to achieve that next level of happiness with that type of income, because that much income is so much harder to earn. Um, and so that's why we see it generally peak at about $100,000 a year. People make rapid jumps every $10,000 a year. They get to 100, and that seems to be the plateau for most people. So my hope is that you take away that it is about the mastery and it's about the autonomy that you would want out of the work that you do, not necessarily the money. The money just takes away the survival fears and stress that can come from a lower income. Once you hit 100, you've pretty much topped out in terms of level of happiness and contentedness for your life. If you'd like to work with me personally or follow me on the major social media platforms, head over to the website at NavigateLife.co for more info. You can subscribe to the audio podcast through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcatcher, or you can catch the videos on the website. If you or someone you know is interested in anger management, check out my book, Navigate Anger. It's available in print, ebook, and audiobook format. I will talk to you all next week. Take care.